Stephanie Dobson joins us once again this week. Stephanie is a lawyer and mediator at Henke Divorce Law and Mediation here in Lloydminster. This is another episode of Healthy, Thriving Family After Divorce. Now, Stephanie, last week we started a feature on the top 5 questions people ask when it comes to divorce and separation, so we will continue that this week. And the first question this week is, am I allowed to move with my kids? So this seems like it would be a very important question when going through separation and divorce. Tell me what the answer to that one is, Stephanie.
Well, I seem to be starting these answers very similarly these days with it's complicated. And it really is. It really does depend on your situation, as is the case with a lot of situations around separation and divorce. So I'm just going to give you some of the basics. So as usual, we're dealing with various pieces of legislation here when answering any of these questions. So let's go through what applies to whom. So just as a reminder to our viewers, the Federal Divorce Act is what applies to married spouses who are seeking a divorce. And then we've got the provincial legislation in both Alberta and Saskatchewan, which applies to unmarried spouses or to married spouses who are not seeking a divorce. So in the realm of the Federal Divorce Act and the Saskatchewan Children's Law Act, those two acts are very similar with respect to relocation and change of residence. So in March of 2021, they were both amended to add in specific wording about these things. So if you fall under either of these pieces of legislation, you'll have to follow the procedures that are laid out in this legislation. So first, change of residence. So this is where one parent is moving, but parenting time or the parenting schedule won't necessarily need to change. So you might be moving across town or a few minutes out of town. So if you fall into this category, it's usually only notice that needs to be provided to the other parent. You don't usually need to ask permission for this change of residence. Now, if you're doing a relocation, this is where the move will change the parenting schedule substantially. There's notice requirements under those two pieces of legislation and regulated forms that need to be used. So if you're in Alberta under the Family Law Act, so then this legislation doesn't necessarily have relocation clauses in the legislation. So it's still court-made law that defines whether a move will be allowed. So in its essence, if you're wanting to move, you're either going to have to inform or get permission from the other parent in most cases.
So Stephanie, the next question that is very popular is, what rights do I have to have time with my children? So what's the answer to that?
Well, I sometimes have parents come in and tell me that the other parent is dictating their parenting time or won't let them have time with their kids. So at its core, for most separated parents, neither party is entitled to dictate what the schedule is going to be once they're living in two homes. It's something that needs to be negotiated. So I always tell parents the sooner that they can discuss and agree on the parenting schedule, the better, because we want to try to avoid what I call a tug of war. So creating a parenting schedule can be something that's either got both parties' voices involved in its creation and coming to an agreement, or it's something that can be imposed by a judge. My hope, of course, for all families is that both parents can come to that negotiating table and discuss what's best for the whole family as far as scheduling. You're going to have to think of things like work schedules, kids' schedules, holiday schedules. Even the developmental stages of each children is going to be important when coming up with that schedule.
Well, Stephanie, we're going to throw in one bonus question here as well, that another one that's asked to you quite often, and that's, how long do I have to be separated before I can get a divorce?
To be eligible for a divorce, you need to prove to the court that there has been a breakdown of the relationship. Now, there's 3 different ways that you can prove that. The first one is by living 1 year separate and apart. The second one is adultery by the other spouse. And when I say the other spouse, you're not eligible to apply for a divorce under this heading by saying that you've been adulterous. It has to be your spouse's adultery. And number 3, mental or physical cruelty. So of course, this goes to family violence. For most divorces, it's going to be that 1 year of separation that's going to be used, because the negotiations around the separation typically will take that long to complete in any event. Now, the exception to this is if parties decide to enter a process like mediation. The negotiations on the separation related issues usually take somewhere closer to about 2 to 4 months on average. And so the rest of it will be just that waiting period for the 1 year of separation.
All right, Stephanie, well, thank you so much for joining us once again, and we will be back to chat with you next week.
Thanks, Stacey.